start our panel discussion. For this, we have invited Rosa Scappatura from Bank New York Mellon, Julie Foulon from Molen Geek and Girl Geek, and Cristina Vicini, who's an expert in the EU Horizon 2020 project. So the format is that the ladies will first introduce themselves to you, give a short presentation. After that, I'll ask a couple of questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So we'll start with Rosa.
Thank you, Marcia. So my name is Rosa Scappatura. I work at BNY Mellon. I've been 22 years in the financial sector. And I'm representing here the financial sectors in terms of what's happening today. What is the status? What is the situation with gender equality? I would probably just say that in 2007, I was the chair of the first program of gender equality that we established in Belgium. So 12 years back. We had a lot of hopes and we had a lot of ambition in terms of trying to rebalance the sector itself, at least within the company. And we were a group of young and motivated girls trying to push the gender equality forward. I have to say that, and I'm not talking about the company I'm working for, but more generally within the financial sector, every company, or at least 90% of the companies, do have gender equality programs. They have appointed gender or diversity and inclusion HR directors. They have a lot of ambition. They talk about gender equality. They do conferences. They do everything they can. The situation 10 years from now, 10 years ago to now, has not changed. Nothing has changed. Just as an example, I'm going to give you some numbers, but they would be pretty much in line with other industries. But women, if we take globally the financial sector, women represent 17-18% of executive committee members across the sector. It's even worse when you take, for instance, ethnicities, different ethnicities. Out of 100, let's say, 17 women, 17% would be women, 1% would be a black woman or a woman of color in terms of representation at that level, C-suite level. If you imagine the progress that this is going to go, what is projected in the next 10 years, if we go at the same pace of progress, the projection, according to some studies, would be we're going to have 1% of increase in women in top positions in the next 10 years. If we had to start today and promote 50% of women in senior management positions, it would take us 10 years to get to a level of equality. And we know we're not going to start today with promoting 50% of women. So it's it is a big problem. And it's a problem that is now becoming obvious because our clients are asking us to be more diverse. The society itself and the stakeholders are asking us to be more diverse. But we have heard, and I would say a lot of progress has been done in several niches. And we heard Claire Godin just earlier talking about the progress at BNP with the very good initiatives that she put in place a couple of years ago. But that's remained a very isolated case, unfortunately. Why is it so? Is it because women are not ambitious? Some people try to say that women are not that ambitious. I don't think so. Honestly, and looking into some of the research, we see that when women leave the financial service, they leave at very early stage. They leave just at the stage of the first management level, and they leave because they have no opportunity. They don't see opportunities for career advancement. It's cited as one of the three main reasons why women leave the financial sectors: no career opportunities. So what are the solutions and what can we do here together. And I don't know if there is anyone from the financial services in the room. There's a few. Is there anything that we can do? If I have to simplify the problem, I would say there are two big areas we need to work on. One is the structure area, how to recruit and what procedures we have to put in place. We know that things get done when there are processes and procedures, and we know that people need, at a certain level, need incentives. And unfortunately, these incentives would come in the form of compensation, salary and compensation. And this is something that the banks are doing. My bank is certainly doing this. All managers from top down need to have at least one gender equality or diversity and inclusion objective in their performance. If they don't reach their goal, there will be an impact on their incentive and compensation. So it's a monetary hit. It's very bad. It's probably not the way it should happen, but that's the way it works. And we have seen improvement by using this type of methodology. There has to be a structure, and people need to feel accountable and to be considered as accountable for that. The other thing I would say is something even more difficult to tackle. We have heard this a lot this morning, and it's about culture. It's creating a culture of respect and a culture where people feel that they can raise their voice, they can talk freely, their voice is heard. And imagine a meeting where you have, 30% of women sitting there trying to say something, and they never get the opportunity to speak because their colleague next to them is actually the one who is asked to speak. There are very little things and subtle things, and they have to do with, again, lack of respect. And usually when you talk about lack of respect, the most vulnerable people are those that are perceived as less powerful. So women, minorities altogether, LGBT community. So very often they experience what is called microaggression at work. It's very difficult to take that away because there is no reason. They're not obvious. They're just felt. But these are things that put away or discourage women and other less powerful, let's put it this way, I say in brackets, people from trying to enter some of those environments. The culture, clearly, unconscious bias is something that conscious and unconscious bias is something we live with. We just need to be conscious that we are biased. We have biases. We need to realize that and make sure that we take that into account when we formulate judgment on other people. We need to say, well, am I thinking this because I'm unconscious? There's an unconscious bias. Don't think you don't have, because I did a test and I found myself, I thought I was very open-minded, and I found a test and I realized I have some as well. It's just a question of being cautious and aware when you deal with different environments at work. So the other important aspect is role models. So this is not new. We have heard it from Claire this morning talking about role models. I think there are two types of role models. Women who made it to the top. Women who can talk about the challenges that they have experienced, and we can all learn from those challenges, and we can aspire to get it to the same level sometime one day because they have made it. And it's very important that these women come forward and tell their stories and talk about the challenges that they have had, because we all learn from that. And I'm just going to give you a story because I think it's one that has really opened my eyes very early in my career. We had the president of our company was a woman. And she's been for many years. She was at that time one of the top 25 most powerful women in the financial sectors in the US. Very respected. she came and she was talking about her career. How did she get there? And she was so humble to say that the reason why she had managed to get to the top was because her husband and herself had decided at one point in her career when she was getting promoted, he had decided to step back and give her the opportunity to go ahead, stepping back and taking more less responsibilities in work to let her travel and go ahead and flourish. The way she described this was so personal. Um, I felt it's very difficult even today for men. I think it's even more difficult than for women to say, I'm going to take a step back and let my wife go ahead in her career. How many men would do that? But when you at that level, it's not easy even to talk about it. But I felt at that time, okay, maybe. I mean, she's really given hints of how to get there. Obviously, that's not the solution, but we have to start and hear stories of people who really suffered or had challenges. The other thing is on role models, I would say, is we should all aim at becoming role models. And role models just mean, the day-to-day hero, the person who has done some little things on a daily basis that shows by the courage that she or he has that things are possible, change is possible. It is important, I think, for day-to-day heroes or day-to-day role models. We need to see more men in that role as role model. Men who have supported women, who have promoted women, and it doesn't have to be a top level of the companies. It can just be a middle level anywhere. We want to hear them. We want to hear their stories. We should reward these behaviors, and we should have them talk about what they do to support women. Because that's very encouraging. It's inspiring for other men as well. So this is all for role models. I wanted to also talk about an initiative in the Belgian market, but maybe I'll do it later and I'll pass it on to Cristina.
Hello, good afternoon. So my name is Julie Foulon, and I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm going to start with a story which happened to me 2 years ago. So I'm the founder of Molengeek, which is a tech incubator and a coding school based in Molenbeek. And the idea is to make accessible new technologies and entrepreneurship to all, and especially to people who do not have any academic background or tech prerequisites. And one day, there was this woman, Fatima, who called me. She's 42 years old, and she tells me on the phone that she has never worked of her life, and she raised proudly 8 children. So she wanted to share with me a business idea. And so I was like very curious, obviously. And she told me that she wanted to create a platform such as like Uber, but combined with nannies, in order to bring the children but to their activities after school or during the weekend. So obviously, when you raise 8 children, you have a pain, and it's the beginning of a startup idea. And though the next week she came to Molengeek, and I was very curious and to continue the discussion, and she came with her 24-year-old daughter. And do you know what happened? During the time Fatima was explaining her idea, her daughter spent her time ruining and demolishing her mother's project. And she was like, but mom, you're just crazy. You're never going to make it. You don't have any money. You don't have the skills. Your project will fail, that's for sure. And she did that during 1 hour. And so that's really mean, huh? But the problem is, it's not, it's very usual. And the thing is, when you start a company or when you have a business idea, most of the time, people around you are telling you their own feedback. And when you go into incubators, people are saying you have to talk about your ideas and your project as much as you can in order to receive those feedbacks. But the thing is, like Fatima's daughter, what's happening is just that people are just projecting their own fear on you. Because what happened with Fatima's daughter? She loved She loved so much her mother that she was very scared because she doesn't want to see her mother fail. She doesn't want to see her mother being ridiculous. She doesn't want to see her mother taking some risk to the family, that she preferred to stop any enterprise, any initiatives, any entrepreneurship spirit to her mother to avoid that her mother fail. So the family and the relatives is one of the, in my career, because I'm building communities and tech communities, is really the family issues is the number one barrier. But you know, in Belgium, we love to save money. We've got a lot of money in saving accounts, but we hate taking some risk. And so when you're women and when you want to undertake and to become an entrepreneur, you have other barriers as well, such as the fear to be good enough, to be like a fraud, and to not network enough, to make to do enough money. But there's another barrier. It's the work environment, and the working environment is really really important. Because you know, men and women who are very different, and a man is going to go and to dive into his project and to think after. Most of the time it's like that. And for us women, we need to be reassured in order to undertake and also to acquire skills. And when we build a project, we need to see all the stages and the path of the project before we continue. And I've got another story. So before Molengeek, I was at the head of started at KBC Brussels. It's one of the six locations of this huge incubator in Belgium. And my job was to create this started community in Brussels. And I had over 50 startups on my floor. And so one day I had a friend from Molenbeek who sent me a young woman called Malika, who had a great project about fashion tech. So we took a coffee, we made a tour of Startit. I presented the startup program to her, and I even introduced her to other startups with the same interest in order to do the first contact. Do you know what happened after 3 hours of conversation? When she left, she called back my friend saying, "Julie, she's very nice, but Startit is not for me. I don't feel comfortable." The problem was not Startit, because Startit is a great incubator, but it was a problem of projections. And you know, and I know that the tech scene is very elitist. It's mostly driven by men, white men coming from middle and upper class who have done studies, and they speak English. They talk about complex notions. They use complicated words, and by this way they alienate uninitiated people like Malika. And which is a shame, because which means there's no diversity, and it's really complicated for a woman today to become an entrepreneur. And in Belgium, we have a lot of organizations and institutions who are helping entrepreneurs or to acquire skills, but only 13.7% of startups are created by women founders. That's not enough. That's too few, right? And the thing is, it's just a question of perceptions and recognitions. And I strongly believe, and with Molengeek it's a success, we managed to create a safe environment where women are really welcome, with a special attention. And I joined Justine Hénin earlier when she was saying that for women it's very emotional sometimes. And just the welcoming and the way we look at the project and look at the future is a little bit slightly different from a man. And this way we create a safe atmosphere with the good values of sharing, collaboration, and so on. And this way we help women we empower women into entrepreneurship. And so it's today, because I quit Molengeek for another project called Girlik, and it's today I'm focusing on that, on women, entrepreneurship, and also acquiring digital skills. And it's what I do, is trying to embrace and to empower women into ICT in a slightly different way. And it's working, so that's great. So there's a way to empower more women into ICT. So be aware of that if you want to become an entrepreneur. the relatives, so the people surrounding you. So sort the feedback that you are receiving. Otherwise, it can kill your project without even starting it. And second, acquire skills is really important in order to break the glass ceilings. Digital skills are really important to create your job or to continue to pursue your jobs. And try to join a safe environment, working environment, if you want to continue or if you want to become an entrepreneur.
Thank you very much. So it was very inspiring to listen to you both and the challenges and the various initiatives that are already around. Well, I want to talk about something that is at the crossroads of these two experiences because my story is similar, and I think that many of you have a similar story with them. But it's also different in the sense that I come from computer science. So I'm a computer scientist by education. I did it here at ULB. And I lived my life and career among men without ever having the single problem, being happy among men and being respected without having any harassment, without having any problem, but only opportunities. And so I wanted to share something about this experience I have, because coming also maybe from a different country or a different culture, I experienced probably 20 years ago what millennials experience today in terms of their expectations, in terms of their drive, in terms of the motivations that bring them to the workforce. So maybe we can talk about that very little. Very shortly, I had for career as a computer scientist at the time, in the 80s. I never had a problem to find a job, even if I was a woman. We were not many in university, but indeed, I never had a problem. I wanted to be an entrepreneur at the time because it was the beginning of the IT wave, and one branch of my family was entrepreneurial. So we had a high-tech company in electronics. So we were producing electronics for the medical business. So for me, seeing that my uncle was driving a Porsche and they were happy, drinking champagne, I said, yeah, well, that's a good life. I want to do that. And because my father was an engineer, my mother was a financial director, by the way, in a company, in a small, medium business in Italy, but she gave up everything when she had kids. So her voice in the family was not really counting much, let's put it that way. The influence of my father was much stronger in terms of aura, because she put herself back, although we all love her, of course. And we were all about engineering, my brother and I. So I grew up with Meccano. I didn't like dolls because I didn't see the interest. And everything was about becoming an engineer, creating things, understanding how the world works and how to make it better and change it. So bottom line, I was happy as a girl in a man's world. And when I had my colleagues and the opportunity of starting a company in the hotel booking, online hotel booking, still in the 80s, so it was a good idea. It was very early on. My colleagues at university, they were all men, and said, oh, no, I want to work at the bank. So there goes my dream of starting a company. So just as a lessons learned, many say that one of the difficulties of women is to find finance when they start a business. My experience is the difficulty is to find a partner to build the business with. So one of the things I've learned in a man's world is that men somehow grow up with a culture of being the caretaker, of being the, let's say, the financial strength in the family. And so they grow up doing business, knowing the tricks of the trade for business. And they look for partners in business. So they will find much more easily someone to share their dream with, to a buddy really to go to through the business adventure. For women, it's a little bit more difficult. So what I encourage you to do is try to find partners for any idea that you have, for any challenge that you have, for anything you want to enterprise. Find partners. And these partners can be women. They don't necessarily have to be men, although men are really very encouraging for women too. The second thing I wanted to tell is that, of course, I did not have a linear career. I did not spend all my time, of course, in the IT, but I had 4 careers. So I went from research, then corporate, then I had the opportunity of working also at NATO in a large international organization, and then I became an entrepreneur. All this did not come because I wanted to, did not happen because I wanted to. It was life that brought me to this, to these opportunities, let's put it that way. And it's just resilience that makes you swim in heavy and difficult waters. When I went into research, it's because I thought I was an introvert, coming from the IT. I was doing parallel computing, etc. But after a little while, I was bored to death. I just could not do it any longer. And that's where a friend of mine, a man, said, hey, but we are starting this new venture here with a company called Volkswagen, and we need people that know the business. IT, I mean, I can only recommend technology. As soon as you can be involved in technology, go there. Try to learn as much as you can, because no business is without technology anyway today. And that's where you're going to be the top earners. If you know technology, if you find a way to motivate yourself into technology, go for it, because that's where you'll have your financial independence. That's where you'll have the power of saying what you want and to be heard. So bottom line, yes, I go to these corporations, extremely exciting, and that's where I had no problem at all having a career. And because also I never had problems, of course I had no problem in saying, oh, I would like to go there. Can I go there? Yes, of course. Most of the time they didn't have candidates for the challenging missions. So I was the sort of, I don't say kamikaze, because I like to win. So I'm not going to engage in something where I think I'm going to lose. But okay, so I was absolutely careless, fearless, because I had no idea what I was going through. But people apparently liked this willingness to take chances and to take initiatives. This is something that, by the way, is very connected with sports. In sports, we talked today about fear. We talked a lot about fear. I don't know if any of you here is a golfer. You're too young for this, don't do it. But the point is, if you fear that you're going to, let's say, trip on a step or on a branch of a tree, chances are that you're going to do it. If you don't even think about it, if you only think about your goal, that's where all your energy is going to be. And so you're going to be so committed to the goal that anything else that happens around you, you will not see it. And so it's going to be more of a walk in the park, even if it was maybe climbing the Mount Everest. So what I've noticed indeed during this crazy journey is that, first of all, there were not many women around me, and that was surprising, but okay. And the second thing is that women or men were being offered chances. Now, this is something that is extremely important. If you don't see I did not invent the opportunities that I was going towards. These opportunities were offered. They were visible, they were there, and there was someone that was saying, hey, maybe that's something for you. I'm part of a group here, a very interesting one, called the Women on Boards. I don't know if you heard about it. And we had a panel recently about, indeed, women that are, I don't know, that are ambitious or not ambitious. Why aren't there many women on boards, etc.? And there was one of the CEOs that was there and said, oh, you know, but I don't have any woman in my team or among my middle managers that come to me, that knock on the door and say, I really want to do that, or I really want to do that one day. And I was surprised that he was saying that, because I know, being in a man environment, I knew exactly what was happening. What is happening is always that the top person look around at those who have the talent, usually they're men, because that's what they have around them, and they say, hey, why don't you come and join me to do this? Why don't you take this position? Etc., etc., etc. So it's not that the person in the staff has to go and knock at the door and say, I want it, I want it, I want it. It's that these people are picked up. It's natural for men to do it with men. It's not natural for men to do it with women. And I think that this is something that has absolutely to change. The day that men, the top managers, will give the same opportunities and will have the same behavior and will have the same ease at talking with women as they do with men in the same professional, open, and friendly way, I think that women will have many more opportunities. And there will be not anymore this bias, because trust me, I don't think that women are less ambitious. I don't think that women have less capacities. I think they have often much more. And I think that women should have as many opportunities as men. And that's why quotas made such a change, because it was obliging top management to create opportunities. Now, that doesn't mean that in the end women will succeed, but a lot of incompetent men have succeeded in their positions, so why shouldn't women be given a chance when they're competent? So this is another thing. And the last thing I wanted to say was about, again, the biases. I thought I knew the environment at work because I already explained. And I did not quite understand why there were not many women in the workforce. And then also at a certain time, also with age, I realized that it was more difficult for me also to go up. So I realized that when I did not have the chance of doing what I wanted, and it was really a luxury position, it was really heartbreaking, because I was very engaged in every company I joined. But then I was thinking, okay, I have to move away. And so I was thinking about changing and going somewhere else, etc. It was really very, very tough. But these barriers were coming for various reasons. Sometimes because there were difficulties in understanding, in respect, difficulties in the communication between myself and the directors, etc., etc. So these things happen. It's human. It's normal. But I was wondering why, for instance, at my age, it has happened twice as much as it happened before. And what I realized is that, of course, the higher you go in your career and in the decision making, the more limited the places are. So you're not going to be measured anymore necessarily in your performance in terms of business or in your ability or know-how, but you're also going to be measured about your ability to create a network of support. Who is going to so someone sees the potential in you, who else in the organization is going to support you? This is something that is absolutely important to build. It can be, depending on the culture in your company, it can be the support of peers, of colleagues, it can be the support of customers, it can be the support of other environments, but somehow you must, I don't say create a fan club, but it's almost like that. It's have other people that validate your value for whatever position you are. So this is something, as a woman, I felt myself very isolated about, because I was often alone. So where did I find this support? So the higher I was going, the more lonely I was to make my case. And I learned the best about how I should behave, what I should do, when I joined a group of women, a business network. It was the Professional Women International. So I joined the hard way, because after a little while, they were looking for a designated volunteer, and so they kicked my butt, as they say, and they said, we need a president, we need a president. And I was still young and employed, and okay, let's make it an entrepreneurial adventure. So it was my first entrepreneurial adventure. And I have learned so much about myself just because I had to learn about how to communicate with a team of ladies. We were all driven the same way. We were all motivated by the same thing. We were not motivated by money. But I was hearing the oddest things, people that were perceiving what I was saying as completely different than what I wanted to, than I meant it, okay? So all I'm saying is biases are very strong in ourselves. Biases are very strong in other women for the women. And so we have to learn to navigate this and to become a little bit more detached. We were talking about detachment before. Let's be more detached. Let's be more objective. Let's give a little bit of slack. Let's not try to have everybody perfect around us. Let's not try to be perfect. But let's understand that when we give a chance to someone that is honest, that has potential, that wants to do good, and we can learn together, it's going to be so much more powerful than bringing this person down and let someone else that is more opportunistic or that has more support go instead. So for me, what I'm trying to say is the merit, and there I stop, the merit of having women in leadership positions is that women, most of the time, when they go to the top, they have learned the hard way how to listen, how to behave in various environments, how to become business people when our upbringing did not prepare us for that. Let's make sure that when we have the power, when we have the leadership, let's make sure that we use it. Let's make sure that we use that to change the world for the better. That's why we were given the right to vote. That's why we were given the right to be board of directors, to vote for the future of a company or whatever. Let's show that we take initiatives once we have the leadership and that we can change. We can create new solutions. We can find creative solutions to change the world, the companies, the environments we're in, to change them for the better. That's all I can say for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. No. You got to keep the microphone. No. So we'll go straight into audience questions because there's about 15 minutes left in this session. So ask away and the ladies will answer.
Thank you.
Yes, we were talking. So, thank you for the question because I wanted to talk about this earlier on. We heard Claire this morning talking about the launch of Women in Finance. Claire is the co-chair of this initiative that started a year ago, and we also have other representatives here, Alison here with us. And it started like a dialogue among women who met during dinner, and we were just wanting to share ideas among ourselves of what's happening in the financial sector. And then it became, all of a sudden, there was a realization that this should be taken to the next level, these initial discussions. And so we started to meet and bring other women from the financial sector and more women and men as well into the discussion. And now we have established a group that is working on very tangible and concrete initiatives. The overall objective is to change the perspective and the prospect for women in financial services and how they get promoted to top levels. So we want to have more women representation in the financial sectors. There are tangible initiatives. There are now 5 and soon 6 working groups. And I encourage all of you, especially those who are in the financial sector, to come hear more about these on the 17th of June at the National Bank, when we're going to launch Women in Finance. We're going to have our Alexandre De Croo, Minister of Finance, to talk about the importance of gender equality in the financial sector. And there is a place for everybody to get involved, work in the working streams, and come with ideas and develop this group even further. But today counts, as Claire was saying earlier. It's amazing how in a year, now we count 80% of the workforce in the financial sector in Belgium as members of Women in Finance. And we still have to launch. So that's pretty encouraging.
If I may add something about the women in finance, since I'm here in my quality of expert for the European Commission, at the European Commission there are a number of initiatives linked indeed to the access to finance for women, and especially in entrepreneurship and for the startups. So I don't know how many are entrepreneurs in the audience. Okay, so that's a number. There are huge amounts of funds just devoted for women in leadership to take the lead and create their companies. So it's for startups, for scale-ups, for innovators, for beginners. There's plenty of money out there, plenty of initiatives just for you. So go and take it. You have various information. So you have the European Enterprise Network is one of the source, and usually the European Enterprise Network in every country, there are various organizations. It can be the chambers of commerce, it can be any other relay. You find information also on the site of the Commission. You can search women, and you'll find a list of initiatives that come out of there. And there's not one single place in the Commission. You can have the Parliament, you can have the Commission, every DG has something. You have the Committee of Regions as well, you can have the municipalities. If you have ideas for smart cities, if you have ideas for artificial intelligence, huge effort now about ethics in the artificial intelligence, about also consumer rights, you know, for the GDPR. You heard about the regulation about the rights. So that's something that would not have happened had there been women in the decision making at the Parliament and the Commission. So really, please go ahead and let your voice be heard.
Yes.
So my question is, how is this, because I now see women in finance, how much is your vision on including men in this journey?
That's a good question, and certainly women in finance is open to men. We need men, we need allies. And the call is for action for everybody. We have put forward a call for action because we need more people to join the working streams. There are a few men already attending, but certainly it is starting like a women-led initiative, but we count on the support and we count on having more members. And in fact, if I think we have to develop a strategy on how to include, how to attract men. It's not a question of not including them, it's a question, and very often the question is for men to say, what's in there for me? Why should I? And so I think one of the things we need to do going forward, and we're just starting, is develop the business case for why does it make sense for men to support and to join, and it's part of it's in our intention is to also, you know, be able to articulate that, because at the end of the day, I think on the one hand, it makes absolutely sense, and it's logical for all of us here that there should be 50-50% of women and men, but for others, you still have I find this very, as I talk to people, you still have to articulate the business case. Shouldn't be that way, but I think we have to, if we want to attract more men, we need to translate it in reasons why. Why does it make sense from a business perspective? And link it also to the revenues. How?
That's what we've been doing for 10 years and nothing changed. That's what I heard you say till now. So
yeah.
I don't understand that.
You're absolutely right. It's a long, it's a tough journey. We have to have men. We have, it is one of the things that we're gonna work on. So with Febelfin, and I have to applaud the work that Febelfin has done so far in pushing these and giving shape to women in finance. We will have to put more thinking behind it.
It's a bit astonishing because we decided to call it WeFin,
Mhm.
especially because our experience, we've been helping a lot of companies, in this. If from the moment on you talk about women in finance, no man will ever attend. So so it's a little bit astonishing that
Yeah,
we
it
call
is
it now women in
astonishing.
finance.
No, well, you have to start somewhere. The objective, I think, it has to be clear, because when you start, if you dilute your objective and you say, "Oh, it's for everybody to get," no, this is really to advance women in finance. We need to get to a level of equality in the numbers, in the representation at every level, and that's the key objective. It has to be clear from the start. Then, how to attract men into this? Again, I think it's a question of articulating the business case, make them understand that if they don't utilize the talent of women, they're going to be they are likely to lose the support of their clients and their shareholders and their investors. If you're an asset management company nowadays and you want to attract investors, a certain portion of investors are already saying, I'm not going to invest in companies that don't have gender equality or diversity at large as one of their key focuses. So this is the business case, and this is going to, we have to develop that. Some men already see it. I think we've had a number of positive reactions. No one has said, oh, we're not going to support. Now it's a question of putting that in action. And ideas are welcome. Everyone.
Makes me think about CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Project. You might have heard about it. They encourage companies to disclose
Yep.
what their position is towards carbon footprint in their business, so that stakeholders and general shareholders can decide whether or not they trust the company.
Yes.
Something similar could be done. Encourage company to disclose what their politics are in order to advance women's role in
Absolutely.
finance, so that it's visible to shareholders.
It is indeed one of the projects of the Commission. The Commission is working on making the rules of disclosure clear for the benefit of investors. So it is very much one of the priorities of this Commission and of hopefully the next Parliament round that is coming now after May. But it is a hot topic in the industry of finance. Absolutely, yeah. Yes. Yes. Good point.
Antonio's the next presenter, so he's going to take it on.
Okay, I just wanted to intervene on one thing. What I've noticed also with when we had our business network, I think there are two angles. One is when you say women in finance, you have to create an environment for women where women can evolve, when women can compare notes in a safe environment. And you have to also create, I think, an environment in business when women trust other women, because trust is essential for the advancement of business. So once we have that in that is where I think women have to catch up at the business level, is in creating a trust environment among each other, learning to trust other women in the business. It's happening more and more. I think it's huge. The progress has been phenomenal, but it has to be a little bit more conscious now and more with purpose. And the other thing is indeed just business. People have to forget that there is a difference between men and women. You were talking indeed in your company about the blending between female and male features or behaviors. You know, everybody has a mix of that. So let's move to a society where it's really the added value of the individual that makes the difference, and it's not where the person comes from, how wealthy this person is, which color it is, that will determine whether you're part of the club or not. I think it's going to be two angles, and I think there's still a lot of merit in having women directed initiatives, because the culture is a massive things to gain ground on for women, among women, with women.
I think there was someone, a man who wanted to.
Well, no, Antonio's gonna take that question in his presentation that he's doing now.
Oh, right. Okay.
I have last question then.
Sure. Sure. So in Molengeek, as I say, is a tech incubator, and so his idea is to target young people without any academic background or tech prerequisites. And so when we started with events like startup weekend events in order to bring the startup culture into the neighborhood. And then what was very interesting is to see faces that you will never see on the tech scene, because as I said, it's very elitist. And so it was very interesting to see diversity coming to our events. And then 3 months after the last event we organized in January 2016, we set up a first co-working space. We just put table and chairs, and just by doing that, young people from the neighborhood of Molenbeek came with ideas. And so the idea was very interesting, but there were a lack of developers. And as you know, with digitalization, it's really complicated to find in the market. So we decided to create a coding school. So it's 6 months training, completely free, no need, no prerequisites, 1 month of selections. There's no disqualifying test. The idea was just to see and to test what coding is. And the surprise that we have 40% of women in our coding classes, which is huge, coming from diversity. And we combine that with entrepreneurship, because you know that most of the young people in this district are discriminated, and because women are wearing veil, and so it's very complicated. Even if they pursue higher studies in tech, most of the time they are not hired, because when they go into the HR process, they are stuck by the the process which has been put in place. So when you combine digital skills and coding, for instance, with entrepreneurship, it's a great way to empower people into ICT and to create your own job. Because if you come with a good product or services, people will never look at you as who you are, if you're wearing a veil or where do you come from, but as an entrepreneur, and because your service is good, or your product is good. And that's the power of Molengeek. So we activate talents. So most of these young people, nobody will have bet on them. They were just put aside. You have to understand that in Molenbeek we have 40% of unemployment rate among the young generation, aged between 18 and 25 years old. In Brussels is 22%. Sometimes in Laken it's 50%. It's huge. And so we just activate their talents, and and we use these human resources, and we transform them into added value for the society. So it's what we do. No, it could be very interesting. And now, because why I decided to quit Molengeek, because now Molengeek is expanding abroad, is good, it's all set up. But the thing is, I really wanted to focus on women, and and especially women who are already working, and there is a lack of digital skills, and so they are stopped. They are stopped in their career, and it's really complicated. So and sometimes they don't need that much of thing just to help them to progress and to continue to develop their careers. And so now I really focus on people who want to change their work, like a nurse, like someone who sells flowers, who want to become a digital specialist. So no problem. So I'm creating a new academy online, and I'm really trying to help people who want to change their career, their job, and also focusing on small companies who need to succeed their digital transition, because startups is great, but it's just 2% of the companies. But the 98% of the rest, you know, in Belgium, we are really far away from where we should be. So now I'm really focusing on that, and I've got some help from the Economic Chamber of Brussels and so on. So that's why.
If I may just something probably to close a bit. This is a great initiative and is one where I see the lack of talent in technology from a women perspective is what is going to happen it's happening already in the financial service. The financial services are transforming completely. Banks are becoming financial or technology companies. We're only selling, digital services. And the next challenge the banks and the insurance companies are going to face is the lack of women in this field.
Oui.
So,
and I do agree, and it's a big challenge today. And you have to understand, Agoria, which is the federation of tech companies in Belgium, they just released a report, and the projection is that by 2030, over 300,000 people will lose their jobs because their skills won't be needed anymore because of digitalization. So it's really important to acquire skills now, and actually there's nothing. So if you look at the market, in terms of helping young people to get some skills, you've got Molengeek, you've got Interface 3 for unemployed women, for instance. So that's good. That's on one side. If you go to the Startup Nation side, you've got École 19, which is the similarity with its sports. So you don't have any women because it's like really sportsmen, doing coding, is the analogy. Or you need to have a lot of money to pay a boot camp at Le Wagon or to do the Wild School. It's like over 6,000 euros. But in between, you've got nothing just to help people to acquire digital skills or skills. So it's really complicated, and that's why it's really important. It's a big challenge to go into that directions and to help people, because otherwise they will be stuck at some point.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Could I please comment still on that? Sorry, I'm Sarah Goins. I work for Jump, which is a social enterprise promoting gender equality in the workplace. And we are currently having a survey on women in digital. So it's a survey together with Proximus and Agoria, and we would really like you to fill out that survey, because it's just that we are looking for, like, seeing like whether women are interested in upskilling, reskilling, and what could we offer, what could we do to make sure that we have enough talent enough digital skills so that we can help women succeed. So if I can ask you to fill out that survey, that would be great.
It's also Jump who has a Men at Work, who gives every year a label to men who make good contributions to advancing equality. So
I've been part of the jury, so I know.
All right.
Already working together.
All right. Thank you very much. So our last speaker of the day, Antonio from Pfizer. When Antonio's done, we'll all go to the networking just here in the atrium to talk more, but we'll first get Antonio in here. Let's see where we are. Password. So try to finish around 3:30 if you can.
No pressure.
No pressure ever.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I hope you still have some energy left after a long day. I would like to thank you, first of all, Marcia, for invite today. I still consider sharing best practice as a powerful tool to understand other realities, but also an opportunity to grow. Today, I would like to propose a different point of view. We are speaking about a lot about diversity, but most of the time we are leaving inclusion behind. We believe that without inclusion, we are not able to tackle a lot of diversity topics. So today I'm departing from here. Thank you. So my name is Antonio Bebba and I'm working for the Pfizer Logistics Center in Zaventem. I'm representing today the site, but I'm representing also the diversity inclusion team that we have in our site. The name is DISA, Diversity Inclusion Zaventem, and our journey started 2 years ago. We have more than 37 nationalities in our site, so diversity inclusion was a good opportunity to understand how we can use diversity in our site, but first of all, how we can create an inclusive environment in order to have all the diversity feeling welcome. We work a lot during the last 2 years with a lot of awareness campaign, LGBT, nationality, languages, cross-generation. We make a lot of efforts in making people understand which kind of a diversity we can face. But at the end of the awareness campaign, there were some colleagues coming to us telling why we need diversity inclusion. What if I'm not interested in nationality? What if I'm still only interested in my work, in doing my work and that's it? So we decide to give a different point of view. So before to start, I would like to understand how many of you are working with diversity inclusion on a monthly basis? Okay. So you understand that sometimes explain diversity inclusion to people that are covering diversity of role, that are very logical, analytical. It's not an easy task, it's very challenging. So sometimes using definition, it's not enough. So I like to understand that diversity inclusion can be considered like the ability to use our emotional intelligence to understand that every time we interface with another person on our daily basis, we have an impact. Can be a positive, can be a negative. So our decision, our unconscious bias have an impact on other life. And this impact can create a success on our daily activities or can create a block. So this was one of the reasons why last year the Diversity Inclusion Council Europe, the Pfizer one, decided to launch at the European level an inclusive culture program. The main goal was to use this training as a powerful tool to feel people welcome. Beside nationality, sexual orientation, beside different belief, political, whatever. Just it was an invitation to have these people unleashing their full powers. So this was only possible through creating an inclusive environment. The training was mainly focused in 3 main areas. It was decision making, relationship, and environment. Decision making is about our head, about our unconscious bias. In nature, we have more than 179 different kind of bias. So it means that we have 179 opportunity to think in a different way. And most of the time we think that is the reality, while reality is not. So in the professional environment, we recognize more than 11 different kind of bias. Confirmation bias, priming, affinity bias. An example of confirmation bias is like for example, I'm Italian. So because I'm Italian, I drink coffee. Or I talk too much. I'm always late. Well, I don't drink coffee. I'm always on time, and I'm really quiet person. So if you multiply this for each nationality on our site, has a huge impact. So how we use our decision making that can be at any level, can be during an hiring process as a HR manager, can be as a team lead while I need to choose a person for a project, or can be also as a colleague when I need to work with with a colleague in my team. So it's really how to understand, how to recognize any kind of bias, and most important, how to avoid the negative one. So it's having a different point of view and not being sure that our way is the right way. The second pillar was about environment. So about the importance of creating a network, creating a diverse network, and creating also a network of people that are different than us for way of working or for background. And this is really important because sometimes we are afraid to go out from our comfort zone. And most of the time, if during the training we were making an exercise, pick your 5 trust people in your network. And most of the time, those people were people that are thinking like us or working the same way. This is because sometimes we are scared to have somebody that go against our idea or they can block our way of working. While in reality, the person that are different from us, they are giving us a different point of view. And most of the time is making a complete, a more complete task, a more strong overview. The last part of the training was about environment. It actually is the most important. And this is one of the parts that really create an inclusive environment. I think that, of course, it's a responsibility of our leadership team to create an inclusive environment. To create an environment where people are feeling safe to speak up, to give their contribution, and to don't feel like not included in a conversation, beside any kind of job position, beside any kind of project. So it's a responsibility of the leadership team to create an inclusive environment, but it's also responsibility of everyone to maintain an inclusive environment. Today we have present to the conference our global VP Danny Hendricks and Kim Sandler, Greg. This is a strong commitment for us because they show their commitment to be behind us. And this is part of the part that we want to share. So how we can leverage D&I in our day-to-day work, okay? Create awareness and take action at local level. Means that, yeah, you need to start with awareness. You need to start to explain people what really means diversity inclusion. But that is not only about LGBT, nationality, sexual orientation, is much more. So it's about all of us. Diversity inclusion is impacting any activity we are doing on a daily basis. And this has an impact in any kind of professional outcomes and personal outcomes. Request support and sponsorship from the leadership team. And today is an example, but beside every other example, we have Pfizer is spending so much resources and time on diversity inclusion because they realize the importance to have an environment where people can totally unleash their full power. So if I feel myself comfortable in a professional environment, I can do the best of me. I can create, I can be totally comfortable with my status, being an Italian or being whatever kind of status or diversity, I feel welcome. Sharing best practice with other D&I teams. This is very important. This today is one of the examples. So most of the time working in a specific sector like pharmaceutical, we are missing so totally different other environment. Today I had the possibility to listen from Didier from Microsoft that they launch also the inclusive culture program. And it was speaking a lot about bias and about inclusive environment. So it's important also to collaborate with other realities in order to be also more stronger and have different point of view. Role modeling, diversity, inclusion. As soon the awareness is done, make sure that the D&I is present on your daily activities. So make sure that every decision that you do, every action that you do within your team or outside your team is inclusive. And this, of course, this is also connected to the women empowerment. As soon you make sure that you have an inclusive environment, You don't need man, you don't need woman. You have an environment that is granting that everyone feel included, beside any kind of diversity. So it's everyone's responsibility to create and maintain an inclusive environment. It's again the importance of have all colleagues be a change of agent, a agent of change, sorry. So give the commitment to each colleague to change a bit on daily basis. So to pick his battle, to every time, also if it's something very small, but can make a difference. It's pointless to have a big goals like I want to change the culture of a company. It's too big, we will never arrive there. But action by action, we can make sure to grant a really a big result. So small nano actions that are achieving the giga dream, a big dream. And last part that is about find yourself a mentor. This is a very powerful tool, especially in D&I, because mentors share information and knowledge. So it's important to have people inside the company that sometimes give you the way. Sometimes you are missing the helicopter view. So it's important to have somebody that is instructing you and driving and leading you in the right direction. Mentors find way to simulate our personal and professional journey. So how we can make sure to be always motivated to do a great job. How we can make sure to be always committed to make a change on what we are doing. Mentor support during challenging time when our professional development objectives are confused and not clear. This can happen at any kind of stage. Can happen when I just joined the company, so I don't know where I want to go. Can happen when I am since 3-5 years in the company. Can happen when I'm almost retiring from the company. So they help us to understand how we can use our potential or in the same direction, or maybe a certain point to change the direction, something that maybe we can like more, or we can be even more committed. And mentors learn as well as the mentees. So it's a common growth, it's a journey. It's a diversity inclusion you need to consider as a human journey. So beside any kind of professional scope, at the end, it's everything about human. My mentor, she's a woman. She's a powerful woman who is leading the way of diversity inclusion in Europe. Her name is Albin Tremoulet, and she is based in Paris. I'm learning a lot from her. I'm empowering my emotional intelligence thanks to her. And I'm understanding the most important lessons that diversity is the gate, but inclusion is the way. So we need to make sure that inclusion is always there, because without inclusion, we can't tackle any kind of diversity objectives. I think I was very quick, but I really hope you have some question about it. We have sponsorship program also, yes, but we are working a lot on side projects. Besides our main activities, I feel myself very lucky to have the possibility to spend my time also on other projects beside my main role. And it's something that is stimulating yourself, of course. But we have a strong leadership team behind that are supporting us. Yes, we have sponsors, yeah, absolutely. In project and as a personal career development, yeah. We have a mentor, we have a sponsor, yeah. I'm very young in the company. It's since 3 years that I'm in the company. Yeah, so actually we use a lot of KPIs through internal survey. We have a tool that is called Pfizer Voice. So at the end of the year, every colleague put his comment on what he's feeling about the environment, about the professional, about the inclusion. So we have a KPIs that we are monitoring to understand if our actions are effective. there is a difference on the people, on the way the people are thinking about diversity inclusion. Because as I repeat, there were people, we are working in Zaventem. Besides it's an European logistics center, it's a local level. So sometimes you can have people that can be interested in supporting any kind of topic about diversity inclusion. Sometimes they are just, okay, I want to do my job and that's it. So changing the mentality in diversity inclusion, meaning committing colleagues and giving a different perspective. So when you work with diversity inclusion, you need to be very strategical. You can't go for definition. You need to take a personal case for every person. It's the only way of committing person. It's the only way. Otherwise, you will lose people on your way. So, as I said before, you need to have a strong support from the leadership behind. So you need to have a strong action behind, because you need to think as a structure. Each site, each Pfizer site has a CRG group, is a colleague resource group that is reporting at the European level. Okay, so each of them are supported and sponsored by one senior leader, and this is making sure that all the action that are making on the local level are promoted also on the other sites as a best practice. So communication is a very powerful tool to make sure that your actions are effective. This can be an example. But yeah, you need to have somebody behind, otherwise you can't move to forward.
So I'm the sponsor of this initiative, and I'm the site lead. So, and my view on this is that it's much better that I have Antonio presenting here than me coming and presenting. And this is also an inclusion, active inclusion from my side. You might also wonder why we are 4 male from here, from Pfizer, which might be a bit strange, but we are also very diverse in that sense. I'm from Sweden. Antonio, you're from Italy. Danny, you're from the Flemish part in Belgium. And Gregory, you're from the French part. And we are also very different humans. I also happen to be named Kim, which is so I'm often greeted as Mrs. Sandell. Have you ever been to Starbucks? Yeah. So when you get your mug there, they ask your name at the cashier, and then you get it back. So I would say that 90% of the time it doesn't stand Kim on that cup. It's Tim, it's Jim, Vim, or whatever, but it's hardly ever Kim. And I think it's sort of shows the way we are biased and how we are functioning in our pre-programmed way. And for me, inclusion and diversity, it's about reprogramming this and see beyond our facade. Is it male? Is it female or whatever? You need to look into the human.
I think that's a really great message to end with. And then we can maybe continue the discussion over some drinks over there, maybe.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Antonio. We'll just leave it there. Okay, so we're at the end of the program. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will, like I said, continue the discussion. On your way out, we have some, I told you this morning, but Urban Decay lip gloss that in a store would cost you more than 20 euros. If you make a little donation to the charity, even 1 or 2 euros, you get a really good deal. And I don't have to take them home. So thank you, and I'll see you over there. Same place as the lunch.